The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Marcus Reed stood alone at the center of the massive amphitheater. 300 alien representatives from across the Milky Way looked down upon the lone human with a mixture of contempt, fear, and curiosity. The chamber itself was imposing, carved from a single asteroid, with walls that shimmered with embedded quantum computers and atmospheric regulators, designed to accommodate the diverse biology of its members. Species 7721C, designation human, announced High Counselor Vrax, a towering cephalopod whose translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. You stand accused of violating Galactic Directive 17, unauthorized technological advancement. Your species has developed quantum entanglement communication in mere decades, a feat that took other races millennia. Marcus straightened his posture, facing the accusation without flinching. With respect, High Counselor, no such directive was ever communicated to Earth. We've been isolated for our entire history. A ripple of murmurs flowed through the chamber. Counselor Thrix, a crystalline entity, interjected, "Ignorance does not excuse the threat you pose. Your rapid advancement follows a concerning pattern. Within 3 centuries of discovering electricity, you've achieved interstellar travel. The trajectory is clear and dangerous." "If I may," Marcus said, activating a small device on his wrist. Immediately, holographic displays appeared before each council member showing detailed simulations. These projections demonstrate how human innovation could benefit all council species. We seek partnership, not dominance. The displays showed revolutionary medical procedures, efficient energy systems, and novel approaches to faster-than-light travel, all developed by humans but adaptable to diverse physiologies. Vrax's tentacles writhed in agitation. "This presentation itself demonstrates your arrogance. You were brought here for judgment, not to lecture the Council on innovation." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "With respect, High Counselor, if you intended only to judge and not to listen, why summon a representative at all? Humanity has always faced those who fear change. We've learned that fear often masquerades as wisdom." The chamber erupted in outrage as Vrax slammed a ceremonial staff against the floor. "The Council has deliberated in private for 7 cycles. Our decision is final. Humanity represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. By unanimous vote, we hereby declare a state of war against Earth and all human colonies." Marcus didn't panic. Instead, he calmly tapped another sequence on his wrist device. "I was authorized to transmit this message should diplomacy fail." His voice carried a quiet strength that somehow silenced the chamber. "Earth anticipated your decision, counselors. What you interpret as arrogance is simply preparation. The signal I just sent has informed our defense forces. Before you mobilize your fleets, I suggest you review Appendix B of the information packet I provided." Several counselors frantically accessed the data. Their expressions shifted from anger to shock. This is impossible," whispered Thrix. "No," said Marcus. "It's humanity. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. You've made your choice. Now we'll make ours." As Marcus was escorted from the chamber by guards, the council erupted into chaos. What they had discovered in Appendix B was devastating. Detailed schematics of their defense systems, communication networks, and military installations. Somehow, humanity had gathered intelligence on every council world of Harar's information that should have been impossible to obtain. 12 light-years away, aboard the Earth Defense Command Station Sentinel-1, Admiral Layla Okonkwo received Marcus's encoded signal. A veteran of Earth's unification wars, Layla had spent the last 15 years preparing for this exact scenario. Signal confirmed. Her second-in-command, Commander Javier Torres, announced, "Ambassador Reed has triggered Protocol Omega." Layla's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. As expected, the Council chose fear over cooperation. She turned to the command console. "Initiate Defense Grid Alpha. Alert all outposts and colonies. We are now at war with the Galactic Council." Throughout the Sol system, hidden defense platforms emerged from camouflaged positions. On Mars, massive hangar doors slid open to reveal a fleet of warships that had been constructed in secret. Within Jupiter's atmosphere, specialized drone carriers activated, releasing swarms of combat units. "Admiral," Javier said, his voice tense, "long-range sensors have detected Council vessels entering the outer system. They must have had a fleet waiting to move the moment the declaration was made. Of course they did, Layla replied. They've been planning this since our first contact. She studied the tactical display. How many? 27 capital ships, at least 100 support vessels. Layla nodded. They're confident. Too confident. She opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Admiral Okonkwo. The Council has declared war as we predicted. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. They expect us to be primitive, disorganized, and fearful. Let's show them how wrong they are. At the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Pluto, the Council's attack fleet approached in standard formation. Fleet Commander Draz, a veteran of dozens of campaigns against problem species, observed the human solar system with disdain. Primitive defenses, he noted to his subordinates. Their ships are clustered around their inner planets. They haven't even attempted to establish a perimeter. Perhaps they didn't receive the ambassador's warning, suggested his tactical officer. It doesn't matter, Draz replied. This will be a simple demonstration. Target their outer colony on Pluto first. Once they see our power, they'll surrender. The Council's lead destroyers moved into firing position and launched their first salvo. The energy beam streaked toward Pluto's small research station Steo and then impossibly curved away, missing completely. What happened? Draz demanded. Unknown, Commander. The targeting systems functioned perfectly, but the beams, they were deflected somehow. Before Draz could respond, alarms blared across the bridge, multiple energy signatures emerging throughout the system. They're everywhere! What appeared to be asteroids suddenly changed course, revealing themselves as disguised human battle stations. From behind Pluto's moons, sleek warships appeared, moving with unexpected speed and precision. Impossible, Draz whispered. Their technology is nowhere near this advanced. His sensor officer's voice shook. Sir, they're using gravitational manipulation technology. They're creating micro-singularities to deflect our weapons. On Sentinel-1, Admiral Okonkwo watched as the Council fleet reacted in confusion. They expected primitives with basic space capability, she said quietly. They have no idea what we've been preparing for. We've studied every encounter the Council has had with emerging species, Javier noted. They always follow the same playbook. Intimidate, attack a peripheral target, then demand surrender. Not this time, Layla said. Launch Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, human forces moved with coordinated precision. Instead of directly engaging the Council's main fleet, smaller attack groups targeted their communication relays, cutting them off from reinforcements. Commander Draz watched in horror as his carefully arranged formation fell into disarray. Human ships seemed to anticipate their every move. How are they doing this? Their tactics are. It's as if they know our protocols. Sir, his communications officer called out. We've lost contact with the Council. Something is jamming our quantum relays. Retreat to secondary position, Draz ordered. Regroup the fleet, and he never finished the sentence. A precisely targeted energy burst struck the bridge of his command ship, disabling its systems without destroying it. As darkness enveloped the bridge, emergency lights flickered on. The last thing Draz saw before his ship's backup systems engaged was a message appearing on all screens, transmitted in perfect Council standard. This is humanity's first and only warning. Withdraw your forces immediately or face complete defeat. We did not want this war, but we are more than prepared to finish it. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, the President of the United Earth Government, Elena Vasquez, watched the battle unfold with grim determination. Beside her stood General William Park, head of Earth's Defense Forces. The Council's attack fleet is in disarray, Park reported. Ambassador Reed's intelligence was accurate. They expected us to be at least a century behind their technology level. And Marcus? Elena asked. Has he made contact? Not yet. He's likely being held on the Council station. Elena nodded slowly. Then we move to the next phase. Send in the extraction team for Marcus, and prepare the diplomatic package. Diplomatic? Park looked surprised. They just declared war on us. Yes, Elena said firmly. And we've just shown them it was a mistake. Now we offer them a way to save face and negotiate, but from a position of strength this time, not as supplicants. She looked at the tactical display showing the disabled Council fleet. This was just our opening move, General. The real game is just beginning. Across the solar system, humanity's carefully hidden strength was finally revealed. Not as a species scrambling to defend itself, but as one that had anticipated conflict and prepared accordingly. The Galactic Council had declared war, expecting an easy victory. Humanity's response was... Dr. Thomas Reyes stood before a massive holographic display in the hidden research facility beneath the Atacama Desert. The facility, known only as Darkside to the handful of people cleared to know of its existence, housed Earth's most advanced technological developments. Around him, dozens of scientists and engineers worked at various stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of screens and holographic projections. The central display showed the current positions of Council forces throughout the Sol system. Their initial attack fleet remained in disarray, but reinforcements were already on their way from nearby Council worlds. They're regrouping faster than we expected, noted Dr. Ariel Mbeki, Thomas's deputy and the facility's AI specialist. Her fingers moved rapidly across a control panel, highlighting several approaching Council vessels. It doesn't matter, Thomas replied, his voice calm but filled with quiet intensity. They still have no idea what they're facing. He turned to address the entire team. For 15 years, we've been preparing for this moment. Everything we've built, every breakthrough we've made, or it was all for today. The scientists around him nodded grimly. Since first contact with the Council probe a decade and a half ago, Earth had maintained a public face of technological modesty while secretly developing defenses against the very scenario now unfolding. The Council believes we just recently mastered quantum entanglement communication, Thomas continued, pointing to a section of the display showing the Council's main communication network. They have no idea we've been monitoring their network for years or that we've developed technology that can disrupt it. A young technician raised her hand. Dr. Reyes, the Council forces have taken control of the Europa research outpost. They're broadcasting it across their networks as a major victory. Thomas exchanged a knowing look with Ariel. Right on schedule. General Zirk is as predictable as we anticipated. The display shifted to show footage from Europa, where Council troops led by the imposing figure of General Zirk were securing the human outpost. Zirk was a draconid, a reptilian species known for their military prowess and strategic thinking. He moved with confidence, directing his forces with practiced efficiency. The humans' outer defenses have fallen, Zirk announced to his troops. This outpost contains valuable research data. Secure it intact. His scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. The Council was right to act quickly. These humans are advanced for their age, but still no match for the combined might of the Galactic Council. Back in the Darkside facility, Thomas watched the footage with a grim expression. He thinks he's captured valuable intelligence. What he doesn't know is that we've been feeding that outpost carefully crafted misinformation for years. The Trojan horse strategy is working perfectly, Ariel noted. And the package? In place and awaiting activation, Thomas confirmed. He turned to his main console and entered a complex sequence of commands. It's time for the blackout protocol. Throughout the Sol system, hidden transmitters activated simultaneously. The quantum field they generated was the result of Thomas's life's work technology that even the Council had never mastered. It didn't just jam communications. It temporarily disrupted the very quantum principles that the Council's FTL communication network relied upon. On Europa, General Zirk was reviewing data from the captured research station when his communications officer approached urgently. General, we've lost contact with the fleet. All quantum channels are down. Zirk frowned. Switch to backup systems. Sir, all communication methods are failing. Even our local networks are degrading. Impossible, Zirk growled. This must be some kind of localized interference. But a creeping unease began to fill him as reports came in from his ground forces. Every Council ship and unit throughout the Sol system was experiencing the same communications blackout. In the Council flagship, now drifting near Saturn, Commander Draz faced a similar crisis. How can they do this? He demanded of his science officer. Quantum entanglement can't be jammed. It's a fundamental principle of physics. Sir, it's not just jamming, the science officer replied, her voice shaking. They're somehow altering the quantum field itself. This technology shouldn't exist. It's centuries beyond what humans should be capable of. Back on Earth, President Elena Vasquez received word of the Blackout Protocol's success. "How long will it last?" she asked Thomas over a secure line. 24 hours, he replied. "More than enough time for Phase 2. Elena nodded to General Park, who stood at attention beside her desk. "Launch the counteroffensive. All targets as planned." Across the Sol system, human forces moved with devastating precision. Without their coordinated communication network, the Council forces found themselves isolated and vulnerable. What should have been an overwhelming invasion force was now a collection of disconnected units, each trying to operate independently without knowing the overall strategic situation. On Mars, hidden missile silos opened, launching specialized EMP weapons that disabled rather than destroyed Council ships. From Earth's moon, stealth fighters emerged from concealed bases, targeting the propulsion systems of larger Council vessels. Within hours, nearly 30% of the invasion force was immobilized. In the Darkside facility, Thomas monitored the operation with growing satisfaction. "The Council has always relied on technological superiority and perfect coordination," he explained to his team. "Take that away and their military doctrine falls apart." "Dr. Reyes," called one of the communications specialists, "we're picking up unauthorized transmissions from the Europa base. General Zirk is attempting to use our own systems to contact Council High Command." Thomas smiled. "As expected. Activate the secondary protocol." The moment Zirk's forces attempted to use the captured human communication array, hidden subroutines activated. Instead of reaching Council High Command, Zirk's message was redirected to the Darkside facility. "This is an unexpected bonus," Thomas noted as he reviewed the transmission. "Zirk is sending a complete assessment of our defenses, or rather, what he thinks are our defenses." He turned to Ariel. "Prepare a response. Make it seem like it's coming from the Council. Tell him to hold position and wait for reinforcements. That will keep him isolated and inactive." Ariel nodded, already drafting the false reply. Thomas turned his attention back to the main display. Now for the real surprise. He entered another command sequence activating a system designated Prometheus. Throughout the Sol system, on every Council ship and installation that had connected to human networks, dormant programs awakened. These weren't simple viruses or malware or they were advanced AI systems designed to infiltrate and analyze Council technology. "What exactly will Prometheus do?" asked a junior scientist who had only recently been brought into the Darkside project. "It won't harm their systems," Thomas explained. "That would alert them immediately. Instead, it will quietly map their entire technological infrastructure, sending that data back to us. By the time this war is over, we'll know more about Council technology than most of their own engineers." Ariel looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving reports from our infiltration team on the Council homeworld. The war declaration has caused significant political division. Several member species are questioning the decision, especially after our initial defense succeeded." "Good," Thomas nodded. "The Council isn't as unified as they want us to believe. We can use that." On the main diplomatic station of the Galactic Council, a secret meeting was taking place. Councillor Nex, representative of the Arctarian Collective, spoke in hushed tones to delegates from 5 other species. "This war was a mistake," Nex insisted. "We voted against it, but were overruled. Now look at the consequences. Our first attack fleet neutralized in hours. Communications disrupted throughout an entire star system. The humans were clearly preparing for this conflict for years," noted the Tellurian delegate. "Which raises the question, how did they know to prepare? Unless they intercepted Council communications long before we officially discovered them," Nex finished. "Which means everything we thought we knew about human capabilities is wrong. We need to push for a ceasefire," the Pronian representative added, "before this escalates further." "High Councillor Vrax will never agree," Nex said grimly. "He's committed now. To admit error would be to lose Phasor and possibly his position. Then we work through back channels," the Tellurian decided. "There must be human diplomats willing to negotiate." Unknown to these dissenting councillors, their entire conversation was being monitored. Ambassador Marcus Reed, officially listed as detained in Council custody, was in fact operating freely, thanks to Council officials sympathetic to humanity's cause. Interesting, he murmured, listening to the transmission through a concealed device. The Council isn't as united as they want us to believe. He activated his secure communicator, sending an encrypted message back to Earth. Phase 3 can begin ahead of schedule. The opposition faction is already forming. Meanwhile, on Luna, Earth's moon, Commander Dara Wilson oversaw final preparations for the defense of the largest human off-world settlement. Unlike the other human bases which had remained hidden until the conflict began, the Luna base was well known to the Council. Captain Nadia Volkov stood on the bridge of the ESS Phantom, Earth's first true stealth carrier. The ship hung silently in the darkness of space, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it invisible to both visual sensors and energy detection arrays. Around it floated the debris of a Council supply convoy, the third such convoy the Phantom had intercepted in the past week. "Clean operation," commented Lieutenant Rafael Diaz, Nadia's tactical officer. "No casualties on either side, and we've secured 90% of their supply containers." Nadia nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the tactical display. "The Council still doesn't understand what we're doing. They expect us to engage their warships directly, to match firepower with firepower." She shook her head. "That's not how humans fight wars." The bridge crew worked efficiently around her, securing the captured supplies and preparing for their next jump. The Phantom was one of 12 stealth carriers deployed throughout the edges of the Sol system, each tasked with disrupting Council operations without direct confrontation. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Okonkwo." Nadia moved to the communications console. Layla's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "Captain Volkov, good work on the convoy interception. We've analyzed the captured supplies. They're transporting specialized components for quantum communication relays. They're trying to rebuild their network." "Makes sense," Nadia replied. "With the blackout protocol still disrupting their primary systems, they need alternatives." "Exactly," Layla confirmed. "And we can't let them succeed. I'm sending you new coordinates. There's a major supply hub at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Council forces have commandeered one of our automated mining stations and are using it as a staging area." Nadia studied the data as it came through. "That's deep in hostile territory now. Their patrols are heavy in that sector. That's why I'm sending the Phantom," Layla said firmly. "Get in, disrupt their operation, and get out. No direct engagement unless absolutely necessary." "Understood, Admiral." Nadia turned to her navigation officer. "Plot a course, stealth approach pattern Delta." As the Phantom silently moved toward its new target, the war was evolving in ways the Council had never anticipated. Instead of meeting their fleet head-on, human forces engaged in what military historians would later call the Shadow War, a campaign of surgical strikes against supply lines, communication hubs, and support facilities. In the Council's command center, newly appointed Fleet Commander Rixal, who had replaced the disgraced Commander Draz, struggled to comprehend the human strategy. "They're avoiding our main battle groups," he reported to the High Council via a hastily established backup communication system. "Instead, they're targeting our infrastructure. 27 supply convoys hit in the past 3 days. 15 communication relays disabled. Yet they barely engaged our warships." High Counselor Vrax's holographic image flickered with interference. "This is not honorable combat. They strike from shadows like cowards, refusing to meet our forces in proper battle. With respect." "High Counselor," Rixal replied carefully, "I don't believe the humans are concerned with our concepts of honor. They're fighting to win using asymmetric tactics that exploit our vulnerabilities. Unacceptable." Vrax's image pulsed with anger. "I want results, Commander. The Council's authority must be upheld. Deploy the Fifth Fleet to their lunar colony. Destroy it completely. Show these humans the consequence of defiance." After the transmission ended, Rixal turned to his strategic advisor, a veteran of many campaigns. "The High Counselor doesn't understand what we're facing." "No," agreed the advisor. "He still thinks this is a simple punitive action. It's becoming clear that this is something else entirely." He hesitated before continuing. "Commander, there are rumors circulating among the lower-ranking officers. Some believe this war was a mistake from the beginning." "Be careful, Trell," Rixal warned. Such talk borders on sedition. Perhaps, Trell acknowledged, but I'm not the only one thinking it. Reports from multiple fronts suggest the humans were prepared for this conflict long before it began. It's as if they knew our plans in advance. That's impossible, Rixal insisted, though with less conviction than he would have liked. No species could penetrate Council security to that degree. Then how do you explain their countermeasures? The way they target precisely our most vulnerable systems? The fact that they seem to anticipate our tactical adjustments before we make them? Rixal had no answer. Instead, he turned his attention to the upcoming lunar assault. Prepare the Fifth Fleet. We attack the human moon base in 6 cycles. Meanwhile, on a secure Council world far from the front lines, a clandestine meeting was taking place. Councilor Nex and representatives from 17 species gathered in a chamber shielded from surveillance. The casualties are mounting, began the Tellurian representative without preamble. Not just military losses, but economic damage as well. With human forces targeting our supply lines, critical resources aren't reaching their destinations. 3 worlds are already reporting shortages. And for what? Asked the representative from Proxima, a normally quiet species. Because humans develop technology too quickly? Because they might someday challenge Council authority? These are not reasons for war. We were outvoted, Nex reminded them. High Councilor Vrax and his faction pushed through the war declaration despite our objections. Then perhaps it's time to reconsider the Council's leadership. Structure, suggested the Arcturian delegate, causing a ripple of surprise through the gathering. If Vrax's decision has led us into a costly and unnecessary conflict, should he remain as High Councilor? Careful, warned Nex. Such talk is dangerous. More dangerous than this war? Countered the Arcturian. Every day it continues, we lose ships, personnel, and resources. And for what gain? The humans aren't even attempting to counter-invade Council space. They're simply defending their system with remarkable efficiency. There's more, added a late arrival to the meeting, the representative from Sirius. Our intelligence suggests that human infiltration of Council systems may be more extensive than anyone realized. There are indications they've had agents on Council worlds for years. Possibly since before we officially discovered their existence. This revelation sent shockwaves through the gathering. If true, that changes everything, Nex said quietly. It would mean they've been monitoring us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this conflict while we thought them ignorant of our very existence. We need to end this war, the Proximan insisted. Before it escalates further. Vrax will never agree to peace talks, Nex replied. Not unless forced by circumstances. Then perhaps, the Arcturian suggested, we should create such circumstances. Back aboard the Phantom, Captain Nadia Volkov was leading her crew on their most daring mission yet. The Council supply hub was heavily guarded, with patrol ships making regular sweeps of the surrounding space. Approach vector calculated, reported the navigation officer. We'll use the debris field from the old mining operation for cover. Nadia nodded. Maintain stealth systems at maximum. Time to weapons range? 17 minutes, Captain. The Phantom glided silently through space, its advanced hull absorbing rather than reflecting sensor sweeps. Inside, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for the precision strike that would cripple yet another Council supply chain. Captain, the sensor officer called suddenly. I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the Council fleet near Luna. They're preparing for a major assault. Nadia frowned. Show me. The tactical display shifted to show the Council's Fifth Fleet, a formidable armada of over 60 warships, moving into attack formation around Earth's moon. It was by far the largest concentration of Council forces since the conflict began. They're going all in on Luna base, Raphael observed, committing a significant portion of their remaining combat-ready vessels. Nadia studied the display for a long moment. Continue with our mission, she finally decided. Luna base is prepared for this. We stick to the plan. As the Phantom continued its approach to the supply hub, the Fifth Fleet began its attack on Luna. Massive energy weapons carved into the lunar surface, destroying the outer defenses with overwhelming force. Council dropships descended, deploying ground forces to secure what they believed was humanity's primary off-world settlement. The initial resistance was minimal, exactly as Commander Dara Wilson had planned. Council forces pushed forward rapidly, securing the outer facilities and moving toward the central habitation domes. General Zirk, who had been transferred from Europa to lead this crucial assault, moved with his troops through the seemingly abandoned corridors of the main research facility. "Too easy," he muttered to his second-in-command. "Where are their defenders?" "Perhaps they evacuated, sir," suggested the junior officer. "Our approach wasn't exactly subtle." "No," Zirk shook his head. "Humans don't abandon valuable assets without a fight. Something's wrong." But his concerns came too late. Throughout the lunar installation, hidden sensors tracked the movements of Council forces. As they penetrated deeper into the facility, they triggered the trap that had been waiting for them. Commander Wilson, monitoring from a hidden command center. Director Jackson Hayes stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, as he watched the massive wall of displays in Earth Defense Intelligence headquarters beneath Mount Cheyenne. The central screen showed real-time footage from Luna, where Council forces were being systematically disarmed and contained. Smaller displays tracked ongoing operations throughout the solar system, stealth strikes against supply lines, infiltration of communication networks, and the gradual dismantling of Council military capability. The Luna operation proceeded exactly as you predicted. "Director," noted Deputy Director Maya Patel, approaching with a data tablet. "General Zirk surrendered 17 minutes ago. The entire Fifth Fleet is now under our control." Jackson nodded, his weathered face revealing nothing. At 62, he was the oldest active member of Earth's defense leadership, with a career spanning back to before first contact with alien life. It was Hayes who had first advocated for the strategy now unfolding. A strategy many had considered too ruthless, too calculating when he'd proposed it 15 years ago. "And the Council's reaction?" he asked. "Chaos," Maya replied with satisfaction. "Our intelligence assets report emergency sessions, accusations of incompetence, calls for Vrax's removal. The opposition faction led by Councilor Nex is gaining support rapidly." "Good." Jackson turned from the displays, walking toward the central planning table where a three-dimensional representation of the Sol system floated, Council and human assets marked in red and blue respectively. "It's time for the next phase. Are Ambassador Krell's credentials verified?" "Yes, sir. He represents 17 Council species, all opposed to the war. He's requesting a direct meeting with President Vasquez." "Deny it," Jackson said flatly. "We're not ready for formal negotiations yet." Maya looked surprised. "Sir, this could be our chance to end the conflict." "End it?" Jackson's eyes narrowed slightly. "The Council declared war on humanity, Maya. They intended to subjugate us, perhaps even eradicate us if we proved too troublesome. Ending the war on their terms would only postpone the inevitable. No, we need to ensure this never happens again." He touched the holographic display, zooming in on the Council's main fleet, now regrouping near Jupiter. "They still don't understand what they're facing. They think Luna was a tactical defeat. They don't realize it's part of a larger strategy." "Operation Checkmate," Maya nodded, understanding. "But sir, the casualty projections will be minimal," Jackson interrupted. "That's the point. We've spent 15 years developing weapons that disable rather than destroy. The Council thinks we're being merciful out of moral considerations." A grim smile briefly touched his lips. "They don't realize it's simply more efficient." He turned to his communication officer. "Send the go order to all field commanders. Initiate Phase 4. Throughout the solar system, human forces that had been engaging in hit-and-run tactics suddenly changed their approach. Instead of avoiding the Council's main fleet, they began herding it, using precisely calculated strikes to force it into a predetermined position. Commander Rixal, now in charge of the Council's remaining combat forces, observed the change with growing concern. "They've altered their strategy," he told his advisors. "These attacks seem random, but they're pushing us toward the Jovian sector." "Perhaps they're trying to draw us away from Earth," suggested his tactical officer. "With the Fifth Fleet captured, they may believe we'll attempt a direct assault on their homeworld." "No," Rixal shook his head. "It's something else." He studied the tactical display, trying to discern the pattern in the humans' movements. "They're too precise, too coordinated. They want us in a specific position, but why?" As if in answer to his question, alarms blared across the bridge. "Massive energy signatures detected," called the sensor officer. "Multiple sources surrounding our position." What happened next would later be described in Council military academies as the Jovian Trap. Hidden within Jupiter's complex system of moons, Humanity had constructed a network of specialized weapon platforms. Unlike conventional weapons, these didn't fire projectiles or energy beams. Instead, they generated an overlapping field of quantum disruption, a technology derived from Dr. Reyes's blackout protocol, but refined and weaponized. As the field activated, Council ships throughout the fleet experienced cascading systems failures. Weapons went offline. Engines shut down. Even life support systems began to falter. Within minutes, without firing a single conventional shot, human forces had rendered the entire Council fleet helpless. From his command post, Jackson Hayes watched the operation unfold with cold satisfaction. "Send in the boarding teams," he ordered. "Secure those ships intact." Maya studied the display, shaking her head in amazement. They never saw it coming. An entire fleet disabled without destruction. "That was always the plan," Jackson replied. "Dead enemies create martyrs and fuel hatred. Defeated enemies who live to tell of their defeat spread fear." He turned to face his deputy directly. "And fear, Maya, is a more effective deterrent than any weapon." On the Council diplomatic station, the emergency session had devolved into near chaos. High Counselor Vrax faced a chamber full of angry representatives, many openly calling for his removal. "You assured us this would be a simple punitive action," shouted the Centaurian delegate. "Instead, we face the greatest military disaster in Council history." "The humans deceived us all," Vrax insisted, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "They concealed their true technological capabilities, which is precisely why we should have proceeded with caution," interrupted Counselor Nex. "Instead, you pushed for immediate military action without proper intelligence or consideration of alternatives." Before Vrax could respond, the chamber's main communication screen activated, showing a human face, our President Elena Vasquez of Earth. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "I address you directly to inform you that your main battle fleet has been neutralized. All vessels have been secured by Earth forces with minimal casualties. This follows the capture of your Fifth Fleet at Luna." Stunned silence filled the chamber as Elena continued. "Within the past hour, specialized human units have also secured control of 27 Council military installations throughout the Sol system. In short, your invasion force has been completely defeated." Vrax stepped forward, his voice shaking with rage. "This is not over, human. The Council commands the resources of 1,000 worlds. We will send more ships, more war." "I strongly advise against that course of action," Elena interrupted. "My military advisors have recommended I show you something." The display split, showing a new image alongside Elena's face. One's a detailed schematic of the Council's main defense grid, the system protecting their homeworlds. "This is a real-time view of your central defense network," Elena explained. "As you can see, we have complete access to its control systems. We have similar access to your primary communication network, transportation infrastructure, and power distribution systems." The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just defeated their invasion force, they'd somehow penetrated the Council's most secure systems. "How is this possible?" whispered Vrax, all arrogance gone from his voice. "You made a fundamental error, Counselor," Elena replied. "You assumed that because we had not yet traveled beyond our own solar system, we were unaware of galactic civilization. The truth is, we detected your observation probes decades ago. We've been studying you ever since, preparing for the day you chose to reveal yourselves or attack." She leaned forward slightly. "And now I offer you a choice. You can continue this war, in which case we will be forced to demonstrate our control of your infrastructure in more dramatic ways. Or you can agree to immediate peace negotiations, with terms that will ensure such a conflict never happens again." In the stunned silence that followed, Counselor Nex stepped forward. "President Vasquez, I represent a significant faction within the Council that opposed this war from the beginning. We would welcome peace negotiations." "I'm pleased to hear that, Counselor," Elena nodded. "Ambassador Krell has already presented your credentials. We're prepared to meet with your delegation immediately." "This is outrageous," Vrax shouted. "The High Council has not authorized any peace delegation." The chamber erupted again, but this time the anger was directed squarely at Vrax. The Centaurian delegate rose to his full height. "I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in High Counselor Vrax." The motion passed overwhelmingly. Within moments, Vrax found himself stripped of authority, and Counselor Nex was appointed as acting High Counselor. President Vasquez, Nex addressed the human leader. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request a ceasefire and the opening of peace negotiations. Granted, Elena replied. My diplomatic team will contact you with details. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in a state of stunned shock. Back on Earth, in the presidential situation room, Elena turned to her advisors. Phase 4 complete, she announced. Director Hayes, you were right. They folded exactly as you predicted. Jackson nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Bullies always do when confronted with superior force. The Council has built its authority on intimidating. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, the same chamber where Ambassador Marcus Reed had stood alone just weeks earlier, now buzzed with tense energy. Representatives from over 300 species filled the tiered seating, their expressions ranging from anger to fear to grudging respect. At the center of the chamber stood not a lone human but a delegation of 5, led by newly elected Earth President Diana Washington. Unlike her predecessor Elena Vasquez, who had guided Earth through the brief but decisive war, Diana had been chosen specifically for her diplomatic background. Tall and commanding, with silver-streaked black hair and penetrating eyes that seemed to miss nothing, she surveyed the chamber with calm confidence. Representatives of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying effortlessly throughout the vast space. I stand before you today not as a conqueror nor as a supplicant, but as the voice of a species seeking its rightful place among the stars. The chamber remained silent, every alien representative acutely aware of the power shift that had occurred. Where once humans had been seen as upstarts barely worth notice, they were now viewed with a mixture of fear and wary respect. The recent conflict between Earth and the Council was unnecessary and regrettable, Diana continued. It cost lives, resources, and trust. But perhaps it was inevitable, or as a consequence of a system that has, for too long, valued hierarchy over cooperation, control over mutual growth. Acting High Counselor Nex, who had replaced the disgraced Vrax, leaned forward. President Washington, with respect, you speak as though the Council is answerable to Earth. I remind you that despite your impressive defense of your home system, the Council still represents over 1,000 worlds and civilizations spanning the galaxy. Diana nodded politely. Indeed, Counselor Nex, the Council's reach is vast and its history ancient. We have no desire to dismantle what has in many ways brought stability to the galaxy. Her expression hardened slightly. But the war your predecessor declared has changed things irrevocably. The terms we've presented are non-negotiable. Behind her, Ambassador Marcus Reed stepped forward, activating a holographic display that appeared before each council representative. The Treaty of Sol, he explained, a new framework for Earth's relationship with the Galactic Council and, by extension, a new approach to how the Council interacts with all member and non-member species. The terms displayed were breathtaking in their scope. Earth demanded not just peace and recognition of its sovereignty, but a complete restructuring of the Council itself. The hierarchical system that had placed older species in permanent positions of authority would be replaced by a rotating representative body. Technology sharing would be mandatory rather than restricted. And most significantly, the practice of guiding younger species, effectively keeping them dependent and subservient, would end. This is outrageous, exclaimed the representative from Draconis, one of the oldest council races. You would have us surrender authority we've held for millennia because of one military setback? Diana's gaze fixed on the Draconian. Not because of a military setback, representative. Because the current system is fundamentally flawed. It stifles innovation, breeds resentment, and eventually leads to exactly the kind of conflict we've just experienced. And if we refuse these terms? Challenged another representative. Instead of answering directly, Diana nodded to the third member of her delegation, a Director Jackson Hayes of Earth Defense Intelligence. Hayes stepped forward, his weathered face impassive. Without a word, he activated his own device. Instantly, the chamber's lighting flickered. And on every representative's personal console, classified information began to appear. Internal communications, military plans, financial transactions, private conversations. For the past 27 years, Hayes stated calmly, Earth has maintained a network of observers and intelligence assets throughout Council space. Initially, this was simple survival insurance around a way for us to monitor a vastly more powerful potential threat. But as we learned more about how the Council operates, our mission expanded. He gestured to the information streaming across their screens. What you're seeing is a small sample of the intelligence we've gathered. We have operatives on 342 Council worlds. We've penetrated your security networks, financial systems, and military command structures. We know more about how the Council truly functions than many of its own members. The chamber erupted into shocked exclamations and angry shouts. Diana allowed the chaos to continue for several moments before raising her hand for silence. This is not a threat, she clarified once the noise had subsided. It's simply context for our negotiations. Earth doesn't seek dominance or revenge. We seek reform for ourselves and for the hundreds of other species who have been kept in check by Council policies. From the upper tiers, a crystalline entity chimed a request to speak. It was Councillor Thrix, who had been among Marcus Reed's most vocal accusers during the initial confrontation. I have a question, Thrix's translated voice echoed. If humans possessed such extensive intelligence on the Council, why wait until we declared war? Why not reveal yourselves earlier and prevent conflict entirely? Marcus Reed answered this one. We tried, Councillor. For years, our signals and probes reached out, attempting peaceful contact. They were either ignored or treated as primitive curiosities. When we finally detected your observation outposts in our system, we sent direct communications. They went unanswered. Because they were deemed irrelevant, muttered Nex, now understanding. Standard protocol for pre-FTL species. Exactly, Diana nodded. Your protocols classified us as unworthy of direct engagement. So we adapted. We studied your technologies from the observation posts you thought were hidden. We captured and reverse-engineered your probes, and when we developed our first FTL drive 15 years ago, we did so in secret, allowing your observers to report that we were decades away from such capability. The revelation sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. A species that had achieved faster-than-light travel in secret, while under Council observation, was unprecedented. All this time, continued Diana, we hoped for peaceful first contact. Instead, we were judged, condemned, and attacked them all without being given a true voice. The Treaty of Sol ensures this won't happen again, to us or to any other species. Acting High Counselor Nex conferred briefly with his advisors before addressing the human delegation again. President Washington, while I personally find merit in many of your proposals, I must point out that restructuring the entire Council requires approval from 2/3 of all member species. Such a process could take years, perhaps decades. Diana smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. We anticipated that response. Counselor. She nodded to the fourth member of her delegation, a quiet, unassuming woman who had stood silently until now. This is Dr. Lyra Santos, head of our diplomatic corps. Diana introduced her. She's been working on this contingency for some time. Lyra stepped forward, her gentle voice somehow commanding immediate attention. Representatives of the Council over the past 5 years, I've personally met with delegates from 217 Council species. These meetings occurred covertly, often through intermediaries or during cultural exchanges that seemed unrelated to diplomacy. She activated her own display, showing a list of species and signed agreements. Each of these worlds has already agreed, in principle, to support the reforms outlined in the Treaty of Sol. Together, they represent 72% of Council membership, or more than enough for the 2/3 majority required by your own bylaws. The chamber fell completely silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Council militarily, they had outmaneuvered them diplomatically as well, building a coalition for reform right under their noses. This is irregular, Nex finally managed, clearly struggling to maintain composure. Perhaps, acknowledged Diana, but not illegal under Council law. We've simply done our homework thoroughly. From his seat among the elder species representatives, the delegate from Arcturus slowly rose. Ancient even by Council standards, the Arcturian's voice rasped with age. I have witnessed 17 species join the Council during my lifetime, he began. Each followed the same pattern: war's initial resistance, gradual acceptance of their place in our hierarchy, eventual integration. But humans, he made a sound that translated as a mixture of laugh and sigh. Humans refuse to follow the pattern. Is that so terrible? Diana asked quietly. Terrible? No. The ancient alien's multifaceted eyes gleamed. Refreshing, perhaps. Concerning, certainly, but also necessary. He turned to address the entire chamber. Our Galactic Council has existed for over 12,000 years. In that time, we have brought stability and order to much of the galaxy. But order without growth becomes stagnation. Perhaps it is time for change. With those words, the tone of the chamber shifted. What had begun as hostile resistance gradually transformed into reluctant consideration. Over the next several hours, the council representatives debated the Treaty of Soul point by point, with the human delegation answering questions in clarifying terms. By the session's end, a preliminary vote showed clear majority support for the reforms. Actual implementation would take time, but the path for